I Will Dominate, and this is Thorin's channel. The guy who, if I keep on associating with him, will get me banned on Twitch eventually.
Right, I'm here for another episode of Talk to Thorin, and this episode is going to be with Yasukeh, who people might have seen on some of my Big Brains episodes about a bunch of different regions, mainly LCS obviously, but he is probably more notable for being a former challenger player on the NA server. Particularly his gimmick is he's a one-trick Tryndamere mid player, although technically I will say that has been a multiple role fucking champion you could use over the last few years anyway. And so what I thought we'd do is, we are going to later on in the interview get to some spicier topics and some fun things that are vague, I'll say vaguely esports related. There's actually going to be one of my interviews, which isn't that esports related in my opinion. Because what I wanted to do was sort of a classic League of Legends style interview, which is actually things like, what is solo queue like now? What's the best approach to climbing? Like, how are things different? How important is CS in? All the classic old school, like noob FAQ questions. But the problem I have is, when I actually think back, a lot of that material was unironically created in the early seasons. And even like the updates, they're just almost rewrites if people don't know. And in fact, kind of like how in the game, Riot still recommends you items that don't even make sense for like your champion or role anymore. And they'll just tell you like, build this. And you're like, no, don't build that. Like in the same way, I feel like so much info that people still claim is outdated. Like the game's changed. Certain things have changed about how people play. So what we're going to do is we'll start here, Yasukeh. So the last time you were like a challenger player in NA was about a year or so ago, and obviously it was actually when Tryndamere was fully enough for once like ever in vogue in pro play. Obviously it was being played in esports, in the LCK, in the LPL, whole bunch of, we saw some in LCS, even though some of them were abominations. So what I would say at the start is this: how would you define yourself? Are you someone, do you think of yourself as like, I've always been a good solo queue player? What were the periods you were your best? And is solo queue like a big part of your life still?
So I'm somebody who's naturally not a very high elo player. Like when I first played, I was 700 elo when I first started. So I'm the kind of person who had to like really go through that grind to actually get it. Most people, when they hit challenger, they do it within their first season. Whereas it took me like 8 or so years to actually first hit it. So I'm somebody who's not like a natural high elo player. Most people hit challenger high elo in their first like season or two. It took me like 8 years, where I had to put in like real hours and real like grinding to actually hit it. And I had to fix not only a bunch of things about myself as a person and kind of just understand who I am, but like it took some real self-reflection for me to hit it, because I've had like multiple plateaus where like I was until I started like streaming, I was somebody who would only hit like D2 at the time. And then it was only after I started having a real reason to climb where I was starting to get into higher ranks. And like it really just took a lot more effort for me to hit it. And right now, I'm just kind of disillusioned with the game a lot right now. There's not really any kind of goal for me to strive for, which is something that, like, if you're like Bjergsen right now, there's not really much else that he can do that's realistic in his vein. So what's really the kind of point of playing? Like I could hit challenger again, but I've already done it multiple times. So like, what's that drive for me right now? So that's kind of where I'm at currently in solo queue. Is I'm just kind of playing just to play, and it is reflective within my rank. In that if you don't play with a specific goal, you're not going to get a specific result.
I mean, on those topics, like one thing I would say is I actually think, even though it's not really your style, I actually think you would be well positioned as a result to be some sort of like a solo queue climbing coach, because I actually think for me personally, if I hear someone actually achieved the sort of rank I want to get, but then I also know they weren't just a natural at the game, that's exactly actually what I want to teach me, because we all understand the premise of like banging your head against the wall or feeling like you're stuck, or you think the biggest problem, is the thing I'm going to branch into, is when you say it took you all those years, also a lot of people would quit, right? They would think, oh, I can't climb at this point in time. So one thing I would say from my own observation, both of other people's climbing behavior, and even when I play games myself, is there's a big difference between just loading up every time and sort of just going through the motions and having fun and doing whatever. Like, if you know the stories I always tell, the only times I ever tell stories about me playing is I don't try to make them sound competitive, because I told people I just play Pike in every role, anytime it's available. And so essentially, I even pick it into bad matchups. I don't care. I just want to play Pike. Like, so in that scenario, I understand I'm not going to climb, because I've just accepted. I just want to really play Pike, no matter the scenarios. Again, that's essentially what I prioritized over trying to get more LP. What I'm saying there is it doesn't matter what I could pick. I will choose to play a bad Pike game instead, right? What were the biggest things you think that caused you to take so long to climb out? Like, what were you stuck on, or what did you, like, a classic thing for me is everyone sort of knows they should do things like CS better, but it doesn't mean you do it in a game, or it doesn't mean you'll enjoy it if it feels like hard work or something. So what would you say were the big stumbling blocks for you, or what did you have to conceptually overcome?
Yeah, so one thing with that is that for the 2 seasons before I actually hit Challenger, I was 1 and 2 games away respectively. And it could be really easy to just quit at that point and say, well, I basically was Challenger. I was 1 game away. Like, it's not really a big difference, but it is that kind of grind to just keep on going. And biggest things for me was just honestly, like having just more focus and more applying more of myself to the game and really kind of taking things seriously, dropping any sort of ego. There were mistakes that I noticed that I made for the longest time. Like, I have always been one of the best, like, laners. Like, I can just understand how to get kills, how to just get leads so hard. But one common issue that I had was that I would overstay too long. I had no idea what back timers were. As Tryndamere, you don't have any mana, right? So you can just kind of ignore certain parts of the game where you can just stay on the map with 3,000 gold. And I would just do that, mistakes of that type all of the time, where even if I knew that I was making this mistake, it doesn't matter until I actually change it. And not only just that, but then kind of understanding how, hey, I'm not getting good back timers. Here's a good back timer that I could get that doesn't make me miss any gold. Because I want to stay on the map because, hey, there's always something new to farm. There's always a wave. There's always a jungle camp. So just kind of taking that of, hey, here is the most efficient way to go to where if I spend all my gold, then I farm things faster. Just taking those mistakes that really just wanting to play it seriously and not trying to play for fun. Everybody has kind of different modes that they play in. Some people will have modes to where they're super 100% tryhard. And then there's, I'm practicing new champions. And then there's, I want to play a game just to play a game. I don't really care about the outcome. Everybody has sort of different masks that they put on in their gameplay. And the problem is people also will just have one account that has all of those masks.
Yes.
So it's just the average. Like, for an example with me, this is one of the biggest problems that I had forever, is that I would just constantly play on one account the entire time, where in a certain percentage of my games, I can play at a high challenger level. And then sometimes I play at a D3 level. And then if I'm playing it in one account, it's just getting that kind of average. And there's no real reason to do that. When you can just have sort of, like, you don't want to have your...
You can have like a fuck around account, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah. You don't want to have every single spar be like an actual match that counts towards your record, you know?
Right. Okay. Right. Along these lines, one thing I want to ask was, I've always felt like a really misunderstood premise is actually the idea of one-tricking a champion. Because what people do is they do this thing where they assume, right, well, since you're just playing one champion, it's easier for you because you just only have to be good on that one champion. And then here's what they seem to be making the mistake or the conflation for, is like, yes, if we were all just playing at a random even ELO level and you always play the one champion you're good at, in some ways, yeah, you're not actually quite as good as maybe the rest of us overall. But it doesn't quite work as an absolute statement, though, and here's why. Because if you actually climb to the highest ranks, then that means also, essentially, sometimes you're doing what I've just said I do when I don't care about ELO, which is I play even into a bad matchup with Pike. I even play into champions that counter Pike, or I can essentially, like, you can't do the execute and stuff. Like, when I do that, spoiler, that makes the game harder for me. I'm even accepting it going in. Like, I'm sort of just saying I just really like Pike, so I even like playing bad Pike matchup more than, pick Nami and win the lane. Like, but the point is, if you were to spin it the other way, when people go, it's easy to do that. First of all, I've just shown it's harder, because sometimes you're opted into bad matchups. Sometimes it might not even be the meta for your champion, obviously. And then the other part to me is, as much as in theory the person who plays the meta and climbs is a better overall player, they can also, within that conceit, rig the draft to be as good as possible at all times. Therefore, the game is boosting them to some degree, if you know what I mean. Like if they always, if they have the last pick and they always pick the correct lane counter, yeah, you're playing more champions, but it actually would be harder if you'd one-trick the champion. So where do you come down on that angle? Because I've no doubt when you tell people you get the challenger, but then they hear like, but I one-trick a weird champion, they're like, that doesn't count, or they think it's nonsense. Yeah. What's your take on this angle?
So there's a couple aspects to it. One is that I would say that I just realized that I'm really good at Galio right now, as an example. And if I played Galio, like it fits perfectly within my understanding of the game. If I picked Galio in spots that Galio was good in, which is often spots that Tryndamere is bad in, I would climb way harder. Okay. But I just want to play Tryndamere. And like that's the kind of thing that I am sort of expected to do is just play Tryndamere when I have that option to. So like there's that aspect of just playing into bad matchups. But the ultimate thing that you have to kind of understand is that when you're one-tricking a champion, you're still playing the entire game. You're not, like, you're understanding the game through that one lens of mid-Tryndamere, but having it to where you are comfortable on a mechanical level piloting a champion allows you to learn more about the rest of the game, because you're not trying to constantly swap champions to where you have to relearn muscle memory and you're fighting your hands as opposed to fighting the enemy. That's the kind of problem with doing a bunch of different champions. And then also when you're one trick, you are kind of going in whatever meta just works. If it's a good meta or if it's a bad meta, you're still kind of making it work. Whereas earlier this season, you could just one trick Nunu and get into Challenger.
Right.
Like everybody who started picking up Nunu because of the way the meta worked just instantly shot up 500 LP higher than they were. So that's the thing with drafting meta, like especially if you're trying to get a little bit ahead, like you can get a lot of leads where it's just this champion is going to be gone in a couple weeks. So you're getting a bunch of like sort of inflated LP relative to where you're at. Like when the first time I hit Challenger, there was no other Tryndamere even in Grandmasters. Like everybody was Masters or below. It was a very bad meta for Tryndamere, but I still found like a slight little edges that I could do to make work. And overall, if you're trying to learn the game as a base level, you want to start one-tricking, and then you can branch out later on. Like if I wasn't obligated to play Tryndamere as a content creator, I would be playing a lot more champions, because that'd be just something I'd be much more interested in doing. But you want to have that base level to where you one trick and that teaches you the game, and then you can learn other lenses to look at that game through.
I'd also say as well, for people who are thinking of these topics in the same usual ways that all the discussions go, another angle for me would be this. I've always thought the silliest thing about League of Legends, especially because it's been many, many years now, we've all used the third-party sites like op.gg, and we're not really using like the in-game client to reference where you are and you break. Everyone uses those stat sites. To me, it always would have made more sense to say, I'm insert rank diamond on, and then the champions you diamond on, and have like an aggregate score based on the champion you played. Like I've always thought the idea I am this, like 99% of those discussions just become nonsense, because like you say, first of all, like the same guy who's one game from Challenger, if he was one game from being demoted to the one below, would never say I'm the one below, but I'll always say I'm the one above. Yeah, like everyone has all these ridiculous biases they're built in. So I almost feel like half of the like I'm X rank is like, we'll get to this later where there's a famous example, but people seem to actually care more that they just get the sort of badge of the rank than they actually are the rank, which to me is such an alien concept, because the joke is I almost wouldn't want to fluke into the higher rank if I know I'm not that good. It'd just feel like that's kind of whack. I'm not really though. Or like we say, if I'm only good on like the two champions, I wouldn't want to be like, well, I'm like the next season, if those champions can't be played, I'm not going to be like, well, I'm Challenger. It's like, I know I'm not though, you know, like if I have to play the shit that's in meta now, I'm not. And then lastly, I'll just throw this out there. People really do overestimate when they're attacking one tricks how many actual champions you have to play, like you were saying. Like, spoiler, if you're only trying to get into the rank and you're not actually trying to master League of Legends, if you say he one tricks Tryndamere, you probably just three tricked some meta shit. There you go. Yeah. If we go look what you won of the games on, you know.
Yeah, like if your champion pool is like Katarina, Echo, and Silas, like you're basically one tricking. Like
exactly,
fundamental champion. It's like if you're a Yone Yasuo, like they're the same champion in terms of the way that you kind of understand the game. And that's also another thing, is that there's like 10 different ladders that you can accurately kind of judge on, and they're all kind of morphed into one. So one person's 600 LP Grandmasters is completely different than another person's. Like there's so many things that affect the ladder that you have to kind of actually put it into context of, one, when did you get this specific rank? Like what meta was it? Was this a fresh account or was this an old account? Were you duo queuing? Were you dodging a bunch? Because there's so many different things that can increase or decrease your MMR or your LP. Like if you're consistently dodging and you're dodging games that you think are at a 49% win rate, and you only play games that you think are 50% or higher win rate, you're going to get like 400 to 600 LP over the course of the season that you don't really deserve. And you're kind of stealing that LP away from people who don't dodge. So there's just all these different ways of affecting the ladder. And then also there's the problem of ranked inflation, to where ranks just mean different things season over season, change over change. Like what it means to be a Masters player in Season 8 is way different than what it means to be a Masters player now. Like when I first hit Masters in Season 8, it was rank 599, which today would be the top half of Grandmasters. Whereas now, Master Tier is the equivalent of Season 8 Diamond 4. And so when you see people, oh, hey, I hit Masters, is it really that you hit Masters, or did Masters fall to you? Because just with the way ranked inflation works, everybody is going to be hitting new peaks because of how the inflation works, which makes you think that you are improving when you're not, which makes you want to just play more.
Yes.
And there's so many kind of messy things with that just it feels kind of disingenuous, and makes it also harder to track your own progress over time.
Yes. I mean, for that one, that's a very easy concept, just because, like you say, using the inflationary concept. It's the same reason why you can make $1 million now, and it's going to mean a lot less than a guy in 1930 who made $1 million. And obviously yours won't go as far, will it? So, right, let's actually ask some of the basic questions then. So in the modern day, people have said this thing to me. Look, let's be real. They said it to me mainly, Yasukeh, because my favorite player was the best at fucking CSing. So they were trying to downplay that was a big thing. But I've been told since, unironically, 2015 by idiot fans and Redditors, like, everyone can lane, and they genuinely, bro, by that seem to think that, like, from 2015 onwards, everyone just has, like, almost the same, like, CS, like, laning. To me, it's such a crazy concept, because to me, it's still an enormous part of the game. But the question would be, in solo queue, how much is CSing? How much is like raw laning and understanding like matchup, like how I can get extra CS, just how to grind an edge? How big is that in solo queue?
So the way to think about this is something that'll also just apply to your like lower level games, is if you have more gold than the enemy, everything just becomes easier. You can make plays that would otherwise be mistakes at a lower gold value, and then all of a sudden it's just way more valuable. Like you'll notice so many times where people will get a bunch of kills, but they're not actually controlling their waves properly, and then they're still behind their lane opponent, and all of a sudden they start losing fights even though they have a bunch of kills, because levels especially give you way more gold, and if you're just there to get more waves, to get more XP, then you're going to just have a massive advantage over people. And I think a big concept of this is just watching like LCS gameplay, where you see people just kind of handshaking that we're not really going to fight for anything. We're not going to contest anything. Whereas I take the contrast of, still to this day, the best mid laner that I've ever played against was when I was playing against Froggen. He would just contest me for every single CS possible. And like I never felt like I could actually not get pressured for something. And meanwhile, he's just getting every single CS. So it just feels like it's kind of me fighting 2v1 against people who actually pressure you in lane. And it's those really kind of small advantages that it's not just that you're getting more CS, it's kind of the mindset that you get put into when you're fighting for every CS, is that you're taking your game seriously, and you're looking at every single CS is a mini game where you and the enemy have this CS. One person wants to get the CS, one person wants the other person to not get the CS. And that's sort of like a little timed event that if you take things like that seriously, then it's just going to overall impact your entire game, because it's about a way of thinking about the game.
Along similar lines, I will actually say, if you listen to this question and you think, well, I don't do that at all, don't feel bad. There are loads of pro players that don't do what I'm about to talk about, which is actually study for their role, what the wave states are like in the game and how they change through time, and essentially how you manipulate the lane just through where the CS is and where the farm is and when you do your backs, etc. I will say that's an area that coaches always stress to me, is like even pro players can sometimes be quite off in their understanding on that topic. But the reason I bring this up is I feel like that's also something where people just years ago in their mind, they've set in their mind, either they like think like, right, well, the correct thing you do is you only ever last hit, which is like some super old school ADC thinking from about 8 years ago, or there's still people to this day, even though they all claim they can lane, who just fast push the whole time. They just push as quickly as they can while getting enough CS. Like, what would you say on that angle? Like, is it how much? Because on the one hand, I will say it's not a simple topic. Like, it is one of the more complex aspects of the game. How much do you think it like bears weight in solo queue, like understanding of waves?
Yeah, so this is one thing that I actually particularly get a big advantage from, is that so I play mid Tryndamere, and then I will constantly find ways to find the enemy jungler and fight them. Try to get kills, because getting a jungler down 2 camps in tempo is going to be a massive lead for my entire team. And so many times when I'm setting up these plays, I'm being very conscious about where the wave is, so that here's the expected time for me to be just kind of doing whatever in the jungle. Almost every time the wave is crashing back to me where I have a big wave and the enemy is just missing everything while they're following me. And so it's those little things of thinking about to where if you're a roaming champion, you always want to have it to be when you expect to get back to lane, you have a giant wave in your favor. Because if it's in the enemy's favor, then all of a sudden you lost 2 waves and they gained 2 waves. And that's just a massive difference of just understanding where waves are. And this also goes into another thing of, there's so many concepts like this that I feel like have just been like they've gotten worse over time. There's this concept that people have in the game that, oh, League is going to constantly evolve and people are going to constantly get better and better and better. But I really don't see that as true, and I don't think about it as true. It's something that LS talks about with pro play, is that there's so many concepts that were in pro play that people just kind of forget, and they're not considered as important or as novel, so they just don't do them. And then the game will just slowly decay over time. And I feel like that's a very similar concept in solo queue. An example that I would give is that in Season 9, there was a lot of kind of like goodwill and integrity and just like try-hard atmosphere in League, where people would be timing summoner spells, just as that example of a concept. Nobody does that anymore. There might be like, if you get into an average solo queue game, even in high elo, you might have 1 out of every 15 games where somebody times summoner spells. Whereas that used to be a thing that you would see almost every game. And now people just don't do it. And there's no reason why it became like a less viable thing to do. It's just that like the game is kind of decayed, and that people are just getting less serious about certain concepts.
Sure. I mean, I'd even throw in on that particular take, like, in my opinion, it's just one of those like microcosm versions of what technology does to people, where you notice most technology, it's even the way they've sold it throughout the last like 150 years. They always sell it like it's going to make your life more convenient by taking this small annoyance away. But what you find is like, essentially you lose the ability to do whatever it took away, and you just rely on the machine now. So what I give an example I would give you is, if anyone knows what League of Legends was like before Season 9, when they brought in that dragon meta, like, it was totally different as to how you grouped with your team, if you stayed in the lane, if you went for objectives. Sometimes it was even what side of the map you're on, is you've got a favorable bot lane matchup, what jungle champion. These are all things that decided when you group, when you go for nowadays, it's basically like on rails, isn't it? Like, everyone knows when the dragon's coming up, and if we're going to fight it, or if we're not, if we're bad. Like, that takes away from macro understanding. You think it makes it easier because you think it streamlines it, but it actually takes decision making out of the game. Like, everyone sort of knows roughly when you're going to do this and this and this and this. All right, another thing then, if we spin it a little bit, is I often think the actual worst coached and understood part of League of Legends, it's a joke, dude, because it decides every game. It's team fighting. Like, if you've ever watched a coaching video, we all know the coaching video is the first 20 minutes of the guy in fucking lane, and it's pausing like LS style every few seconds, like he should have like moved like this. And the joke of it all is, even if the guy listened to every piece of advice and played lane awesome and was up like 3 kills and 50 CS, LCS. If he doesn't understand how to team fight, it's not going to matter. He's not going to win these games. So I've always thought, like, if I was ever going to get coaching lessons, I would for real just play a bunch of games and ask the coach guy, just show me in the team fight, literally like they do in pro player in those VOD reviews. Like, pause the game at the beginning and just ask me questions like, you know, like, what threat should you be worrying about here? Like, which ults are up, you know? That's, to me, stuff like that is like, I think people for real play the game and they do that thing where they focus so much on the draft and they focus so much on how they start the game and when do I all in at level 3 and what's my first item and that. And then they seem to have just like, just sort of freestyle the team fights at the end. And I feel like from the players I've talked to who were great players, I can tell you all the really great players, they can do exactly what I just described, like the coach experience of like, they can stop a game and tell you exactly why they didn't step like a step forwards in this fight or why they had the flash ready or why they knew like they had to look for this guy's ult to come. And that seems to be like a fundamental part of how they win these games. So what would you say on like team fighting in solo queue? Like, have you got any tips as to how people can improve? Are there things people should look for? Are there essentially, are there things you should stay away from and simplify? What would you say on this aspect of the game? Because as I say, it's almost treated like an afterthought.
Yeah, so one thing is like learn a system that you can sort of autopilot of like, if this is the kind of general game state, then I'm generally going to be focusing on this, or if it's this kind of game state, I'm going to be focusing on this. Biggest thing is to just sort of try to understand, like in the team fight, who are the threats on your team, who are the threats on the enemy team, and just try to think about, this fight will be won if we do this. How do I set this up? Come into it with clear goals of like, all right, we really got to kill the AD carry. We really got to like push them out of the fight. If I'm playing Poppy, I want to Poppy ult the Fed Zeri out of the fight. Like one example of how I will think about it is that as Tryndamere, if I'm behind and my team is ahead, I want to go in first so that I blow all of the CC and I give my team space. Whereas if I'm ahead, I want my team to be the cannon fodder who goes in so that all of the CC is burned by the time that I go in and I can just run rough shot. So it's just sort of, it's really one of the more difficult parts of League because there are more moving parts. In lane, it's just you versus the enemy. It's much more streamlined, whereas it's just something that will take time. And the biggest thing is just to think about it. Like, go back into your own VODs is one of the biggest things that I would just
that's true. Yeah, you can VOD review yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, people think that, like, you have to get coaching. But if your gameplay is at a gold level, when you VOD review, you're at a diamond level. Because you're not actually having to pilot the thing in real time. People are infinitely better in post when they're just thinking about just the game. And
it's why we're all able to, on Reddit, rip apart some super high-level pro that's definitely a million times better than all. But we can all be like, why didn't he use the Zhonya set? Like, it's because when we can all sit back and think, yeah, like you say, we all become challenger when we're on Reddit, you know?
Yeah. And that actually, it is a valid, legit thing, is that you can see, like, oh, hey, like, this is obviously just, you obviously do this. And just thinking about those things and having those things in your mind will make it more likely that you actually do it, as opposed to just kind of playing with the vibe or just kind of having it kind of be in the back of your mind. It's the difference between writing something down that you think about physically on a notepad versus just having it in your mind. If it's in your mind, it's not actually a real concept until it actually gets pen to paper. And it's the same thing with VOD review, is that you can kind of think, oh, hey, maybe I messed up that team fight. Like, this is probably what I could have done. But if you look in the VOD review, you can see exactly how you messed up and what you should have been thinking about. And this is also one really important thing is I wouldn't really recommend looking at replays from the clients, because that removes so much context of what you are actually focusing on. You want to, there's a bunch of apps you could just get OBS or something. Just record your games from the first person perspective. And that will show, like, oh, what is your camera doing right now? Like, why
it's like equivalent to making a pro view of yourself, sort of.
Yep.
Right, I see.
Because that will show your intention. It'll show what you were thinking about in the time of, like, that's the only thing that you actually, like, deal with. Whereas a lot of people will do reviews where they're just in God mode, where they just see everything. And there are just some things that either you can't know or that you wouldn't reasonably know at your current level.
Yes.
So just recording your own gameplay and then looking through that is going to be just infinitely better for VOD reviewing your own gameplay. And these are the things that are a little bit drier to do.
They're a bit boring, right? People don't want to do them. They want to queue up for the game again, right?
Yeah, but this is something you can just do in queue, you know? Like, what else are you going to do? Like, it's just about taking it seriously, and that if you actually want to get to your goal, like, what are you willing to sacrifice for it?
Yes.
Are you willing to not watch anime in between your games, or like DM Twitter e-girls, like whatever you're doing? Like, just actually focusing on taking whatever you put in is whatever you're going to get out. So if you're putting in as much effort to get into the serious VOD review, you're going to be much more likely to get to whatever your hypothetical goal is.
Yes. By the way, just to translate some of what you were saying there to a very casual audience, I would say on the point that you were making about like try and do your own sort of real pro viewer angle where you see the clicks, and crucially you'll see things like fog of war and what information you had. I agree. If you go and watch like a replay where you have no fog of war, you're going to do really stupid things that I know from Counter-Strike people do when they watch demos back, which is you just look too specifically in that instance and you don't think of the larger parallel. So for example, if you're playing a solo queue game and you have fog of war off and you saw that like, right, this jungler did some like ridiculous like Malrang type gank where you come some crazy angle, you just wait there for 30 seconds, there's no reason you'll be there, and then the gank can kill you. You actually should pretend you never knew that information, because you're not going to be able to guess. Like, he didn't do a normal path and he didn't do a logical. It's actually better that you just take that as like, it just came out of nowhere, and it did come out of nowhere. Like, you'll actually ruin your whole game if you think you can like plan for that to happen. There's certain things you can't know, as you say. Like, there is imperfect information in the game at all times, right?
Yep, you think, okay, I made a mistake. I should have made this mistake right now. Like, this was a good thing to do here.
Yes.
And that's also another thing, is that, like, you're never going to improve if you just play really passively and don't make mistakes. The more that you limit test, the more that you take the aggressive plays will actually teach you what the limits are of, like, you go for this dive or you go for this really close 1v1 and you die by a single auto attack. Okay, now you know that, like, at that limit, at that point, that's where it is. And that'll actually just teach you way more than just trying to play passively and playing for the win. This also goes into wearing different masks. There's the improvement mask, and then there is the super tryhard mask. If you're trying to just play for LP, you're going to not be making those really aggressive, risky calls to get you back into the game. Whereas if you're playing for improvement, you're going to take those big risks, and sometimes you're going to be 0-10. And that's fine. That's great. It might not be good for your team who's trying to play for LP, but the more that you think about League as a single player game where the rest of your teammates are NPCs, like, the better off you'll be.
One thing that's I think it should be an obvious question, but people do ignore it, is how do you weigh up like trying to master a role and then trying to also off-roll at potentially complementary roles? Like, obviously, if you're a mid laner, playing jungle might give you a different sense of the game. If you're a AD carry, playing support might give you a different sense of the game. What would you say to that? Like, is it actually valuable to climb to off-roll a bit? Is it better to just stick to one role, do you think? What would your take be?
So it is very valuable, but you have to do it at a significantly lower rank than what you're at. Because you may be a diamond mid laner, but you are a gold support player. You are a gold jungle. And then so, like, taking that at a significantly lower level will actually get you to the point where you can reasonably play the game. Because if you try to off-roll in your mains elo, you are going to be so far behind the curve that you actually just can't learn the game. Like, if you're constantly playing against... like the whole G2 thing. Last split, everybody was canceling scrims against them. If you're playing against G2, who's just constantly smashing you, you're not going to learn anything, which is why teams are canceling scrims with them. So just play at a lower level and just be curious. Like, try to understand if you've played the game at a diamond level, you kind of understand vaguely what the jungler does, but when you're actually experiencing it, then you can really kind of see what it actually takes to get this role and how you can support your jungler better. Like, one thing that I noticed personally when I jungle is that I'm really good at pathing for farm and ganks, but I completely ignore objectives. Like, right. I'll be ahead in kills and kill participation, all of that stuff, but I don't know how to slot in taking objectives with that. So that's a big flaw of my game, and it helps me understand what a jungler actually has to do, because there's so many different options that you have to sacrifice one to get the other. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't just get everything.
Right, I'll ask the question, then we'll go to some spicy stuff. But this one itself, sort of a bridge spicy question, because it's the one that hurts people's feelings. Doesn't hurt mine, mate, and I've never been anywhere close to high ranked in League. But I can just live with that. I don't mind it, right? But I know everyone else has to secretly believe they're good at the game, or they're in the wrong rank, or they've been elo held. So here's the obvious question to ask, right? The reason why I've thought so much of the bragging about League ranks is like, it's a bit wild the way people do it, is because years and years and years ago, you can go look this up, ever since streaming became a big thing on Twitch, there have been, I'm not talking about one or two guys, I might have seen 5 guys, Yasukeh, that had that thing where they like had no arms and were doing stuff like either like using like literally stubs to move a mouse, or their face, or there's all people with like a needle in their mouth or something. I've seen some really crazy ones of people who streamed, and all I'll say is, look, I don't think any of them got a challenger, but I've heard of people who get into master and like fucking diamond off doing this. And the reason I bring this up is, if you remember, if you ever look at the ranks throughout history, the vast majority of people are gold or below. So the question goes, doesn't that imply like a lot of League actually isn't at all mechanical? It is like, I assume, decision making. Doesn't it, in a way, shouldn't that sort of be a motivator for people who are low ranked? Like if you apply yourself, you could do it too.
No, yeah, absolutely. Like there's so many different ways of being good at League. There's not a single way of being a super high mechanical god. You look at, like if you're just going to take Masters Korea, you can either be Chovy, who at the beginning of his career, he was a Cassiopeia one-trick, who didn't understand anything about building, anything about wave control. Like he didn't understand the game League of Legends at all. He was just really good mechanically at Cassiopeia. And so that's how he got to that rank. Whereas there's some people who have a 100th of the mechanics of Chovy, but they understand like waves, they understand as a support where to be, they understand how to like control these waves and things that don't actually require a high mechanical uptake of like, there's so many different ways to play the game. And just because you might not be good at one, don't let that be an excuse. Find ways of working around your weaknesses or improving them. Because people think that, oh, hey, I'm a bad mechanical player. Oh, I'm bad at this. You're kind of making a self-fulfilling prophecy to where you're not going to improve at that at all. And you're just going to kind of have that ego of just saying, I'm never going to get better at this. Whereas you're probably not at your full potential right now. I think that if everybody who was silver and above actually applied themselves, they could get to diamonds. The problem is that 98% of the population doesn't apply themselves, or most people, almost nobody actually fully applies themselves. So you being at gold right now is you being at gold at your current effort level, at your current level of taking the game seriously. And if you just take the game more seriously and actually apply yourself more and like drop the ego and just focus on, all right, I'm not good at this. How can I work around this? As an example, when this preseason, I played on Korea from NA with 140 ping. I was disconnecting like every single game, and I got from Plat 3 to Diamond 1 with a 70% win rate, and with plus 13, minus 22 gains. And with that climb, I'm playing in the highest mechanical server in the world on 140 ping. I can't play the same game that they're playing. The way that I would frame it is that out of 100 plays, there are 30 to 40 plays that I can't make because I can't pass that mechanical bar.
Right.
So I have to think about, okay, what are the 60 to 70 plays that I can make that don't have anything to do with mechanics, that I can take those plays that are possible, but I can't perform in that moment, and just avoid those situations and then play to these situations. One thing is just, you can apply everything that you see in pro of what players are like, and then just apply it at your level. Because pros aren't some like gods who are just different beings than you. They are the exact same thing as you in pretty much every way. They're just better at the game. So you'll see so many pro players who like, they have this massive big weakness, but you'll notice how they're covering it up to where you might not even see it. And then when they go to a different team, then all of a sudden you see, oh, hey, there's this massive glaring weakness that the team covered for them. And that's the same thing that you can do in your own play, is that if you're not really good mechanically and you can't do a lot of those big outplays, just play Zac Jungle, right? Zac Jungle, if you just understand and build up a good autopilot of just kind of understanding where to be on the map, like what lanes to cover, You don't need to do anything that doesn't require 5 seconds of planning. Whereas if you're playing Aurelia, you have to have that 0.1 second reaction time of this is the decision that I'm making right now. As Zac Jungle, you have 5, 10, even 2 minutes sometimes to figure out, all right, this is what I'm going to be doing. And so if you just play to what you are potentially capable of, then that'll be so much easier for you to climb.
The Beatles said they get by with a little help from their friends, but I get by with a little help from my Patreon community. And this video was kindly supported by Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Ahmed Hadjou, Bot Pounder 420, Thooorin, Animosity, Tobias Bernasconi, Jensen Goh, Tosh, and a special thanks always goes out to my main man Jerky's Minion. Would you like to ask me a question in my monthly video AMA? Do you want teasers to find out who are the upcoming guests? Maybe you want to take part in one of those lengthy but intense esports discussions I have with my donators, or maybe you want to suggest a guest or a topic that I could cover. Well, if any of those tickle your fancy, put your money where your mouth is and join the Skrilluminati today, where in the description box below there is a Patreon link.